Hello and welcome along to the On the Whistle podcast. No, wait, I'm making a mistake. This is the Lorenz Köhler podcast. We just do it as On the Whistle. Lorenz Köhler joining me around Africa's biggest braai. We thought we would, shake up the entry. I'm Zayn Nabbi. I'm your host. We've got our man from the middle of Johannesburg, the middle of Pretoria, in Centurion. He has the big Joburg clubs on his radar, and arguably the CAF Champions League teams winners in waiting, Sundowns, also within location. Lorenz, thank you for joining us on the pod today. You're fresh out of a Patrice Motsepe press conference. What was that like?
Yeah, before we continue, let's say Orlando Pirates is also could be champions in waiting. Let's not say, let's not give have any bias to the one club.
I would say their coach says they won 2-0.
Fair enough. Look, I
Pyramids
mean,
coach, sorry, says they won
yeah,
2.
yeah. Look, I mean, there's two clubs. One hope to win the Champions League, and one wants to win the Champions League. So there's difference in terms of expectations and pressures, and then that's sometimes having less pressure could be a blessing for one or the other. But we'll get into that. It's a cold, wet, miserable day in Johannesburg. I keep saying this. I'm not a good advocate of tourism for the city of Johannesburg, but it really is. It's after Easter, everyone who's South African will know after Easter.
You know what I love
It's
about you, Lawrence, and this is why, I love not doing this on any platform or broadcast that might have restrictions because we can go to places we can't. You're just worried about making all those Pirates fans unhappy by saying, oh, no, 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 they could be the champions too. They could be the champions. Listen, Pirates fans, I'm not against you. I predicted that we would see Masandawana versus the Sea Robbers in the final. Now I'm beginning to question myself of draws in South Africa. But before we get there, listen, for those of you who listen out there, our community, I just want to thank you for engaging with our podcast, all your likes, all your shares, all your comments. Thank you. We had a lot of fantastic comments last week, too many for me to get into. We're sitting at 90, and I'm just going to pick out 3 of my favorites. And the first was from Joy Photography 2511. What a handle, by the way. And
sounds
Joy
like
said,
MySpace.
Discovered this video by chance, but I'm glad I did. The level of fair analysis is amazing to watch. Despite having their internal biases, but they still give fair analysis. And also the level of knowledge about the South African league and teams is incredible. This shows how well our league is growing on the continent. Thank you so much. Joy, thank you for that amazing comment. We also have Joel Masood, 2454, as Lawrence would say from MySpace. Just discover this channel, and I love the analysis. Fair big up, guys. I'm recommending this to my networks. And then we had Loiso Masengo, 5149. Great analysis all round. The views don't live up to the quality, the views, in terms of the views of the podcast,
Yeah.
don't live up to the quality of the podcast. But I hope more people will subscribe. Premium content. Lawrence, I just want to say thank you for all 3 of those comments. I really appreciate it.
Is this was your first leg preview with Amir?
Yes, it was Amir. He was obviously great from being Sport. And we also had some other comments. And Lawrence, I'm going to ask you to help me. There was somebody, I think Alistair put this comment in where somebody said, the Kenyan guy seems to know more about football than the South African. I mean, Alistair Howarth is our walking encyclopedia. He's a chip off the Lorenz Köhler block, I think.
He honestly, sometimes he makes me feel ashamed about how much he knows more about the continent than I do, especially when it comes to women's football and East
Oh.
African football. When he starts speaking about that, you can really, the passion really comes out. The way he speaks about Tanzanian football, you swear that the biggest superpower in Africa. But I just think he likes the underdog, and he always likes the raw potential of many of the countries, which always makes his conversations very interesting. But yeah, we are for the Champions League, and
Absolutely. And I'm going to bring in my last viewer comment here because they were criticizing us for our pronunciations of Mamelodi Sundowns. I
Yeah.
always thought that's how you said it, Mamelodi. What am I missing?
Maybe it was Amir or it was Alice.
No,
I don't think the problem
I
lies
mean,
with you.
Amir, I think said Mamelodi, but I mean, it's the
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah, no, man, it's like when we say Al Ahly, and
Yes,
they
we'll
like,
never get it right, right?
yeah, they're like, no,
Yeah.
no, no. Because they know when South Africans are speaking, they're always going to say uh, Al Ahly.
Alele,
When they say,
alele.
but, but when they say it, you can hear there's a difference, but we're like, but that's what we're saying.
Yeah. Oh,
Say it
Zimili.
differently. What do
Zimili.
you mean?
Zamalek.
Yeah,
Zimili.
yeah, yeah.
Anyway,
Zamalek.
we love our North African brothers. We love our Sub-Saharan Africans. We love you all. You're right. We got to get into it, Lawrence. I mean, maybe we start at the FNB Stadium. I know you were at Sundowns, Ali, but let's start with the game that had the biggest talking points, which was Pirates versus Pyramids. Um, Pyramids, 2 goals scored, not given because of VAR. Was their coach right to be frustrated? Was the team right to be frustrated? I mean, lots of talking points out. I mean, a fantastic atmosphere, let's say that. Um,
Mm.
2 contentious goals, depending on which side of the fence you sit. But I mean, what was your takeaways from watching that first leg game?
First things first, I posted the pre-match press conference of Jurkic on one of my platforms, and I got a message on WhatsApp from a Tunisian journalist, and he said, "Be prepared for this guy to complain and blame everyone besides himself and his team after the game." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "No, he's a drama queen, blah 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 blah." They played Esperance, or I don't know, some Tunisian team, but perhaps it was in the group stage. I honestly just forgot who they were playing, but they obviously went to Tunisia because you must have encountered them in the home and the away trips. And he said he's very charismatic and very, calm and stuff in the pre-match, and then post-match he's got a different personality. I was just laughing tongue in cheek and probably thinking, this guy, he's just being hot so that his Esperance team is out, blah, 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 blah. But then he was exactly that in the post match. He was like, he likes VAR and whatever, whatever, but not VAR in Africa. This is not how football should be. What have you, whatever. Look, obviously it's emotions. He feels that his team was
Sure.
better. Probably frustrations because he probably felt that his team were the better team on the day and potentially should be taking, a slender or at least a decent advantage going into the return leg in Cairo, where they'll probably look. They said they're going to have a big drive to get fans in the stadium, like a huge drive, maybe give out free tickets.
Because unlike Al Ahly or Zamalek,
They got no
this team
fans.
doesn't have fans, right?
Yeah, I'm sure
That's
Amir
the issue.
wax lyrical about the fact that they have no fans. Like, okay, yes, there is like, the stadium restrictions and stuff in Egypt, but in general, they just don't have any fans because they're a brand new club in Cairo. Who in their right mind decided, let's start a new club where Zamalek and Al Ahly are the main business wise, it was a terrible idea. Like,
Well,
why
I
not?
mean, wasn't it Turkey, the big
It's Al
mover and
Shab.
shaker from Saudi Arabia who started the team?
That was more of a spite project than a sporting project. If the guys broke it down to you of how it started, I'm not sure if they did or not. But yeah, it was more of a spite project. So they don't really have much history, much fun, much fans or whatever. But they did say they'll have a drive towards trying to get and create some sort of atmosphere. Because let's face it, look, they might not have any fans, but from an Egyptian perspective, to have an all Egyptian final could be something
Yeah, it'll
very
be massive.
will be massive, and Al Ahly fans will fill the stadium for them in the finals, both- for both legs, because they'll just be walking, they'll be taking their Uber scooters to 30 June Stadium in the middle of the desert, and they'll probably have a historical time. The derby of the century obviously was the Zamalek and the Al Ahly one, which was quite recent, with Pizzo winning the Champions League. I think it was his first Champions League with him. But it was in COVID, so there wasn't
Nah,
many.
the
I
fans
don't think
weren't
there was
there,
fans at
sadly.
all. I remember watching a game. It was a fantastic game. 3-2, a late goal that had everything. So look, I mean, it's a real possibility that we're gonna have an all Egyptian final. I'm off ramping completely, but you know what I mean. I think from
Of
a
course.
pyramid, you just go back. I think from a pyramid's point of view, the coach. he might not have been right, but it's understandable that he was frustrated knowing that they could have taken um, a crucial, advantage to Cairo. Um, Rivero said it's the best team that they've played this season. So that is a major compliment considering the fact that Al Ahly was in their group and they
Mm.
played twice. They've played Sundowns, I think twice or three times this season, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a very good compliment for the Pyramids team to have because they've been investing heavily for the past, 5, 6 years since they've been in existence, and they're finally, reaping the fruits of that investment with a really quality team, quality coaching staff, and a very professionally run club.
All right, Lawrence, I just got to come in and say that Jose Rivero is a cup coach. I mean, I think he can do it, but just based on the last week, I'm beginning to question if he's got the ability to go and do this in Cairo, if the Pirates team can do it.
There's a lot of facets that you can look at, and this only you only get this in Africa, right? We were debating so heavily because all the fans are now saying, why aren't we not following the UEFA thing of abolishing the away goal rule system and whatever, whatever? And I found this a very interesting debate amongst the purists of African football, and they said a goal in Cairo and a goal in Lubumbashi or a goal in Dar es Salaam should not count as a goal anywhere else. It should be counting for more. And I completely
Mm,
understand the perspective of like you traveling, harsh traveling conditions, hostile atmosphere. If we score a goal, it should have more weight than just one goal. And one guy said, yeah, if you score against Mazembe and Lubumbashi, you must get three. It must be the weight of three goals because of all the things that you need to deal with. So you could say that the ties are evenly poised at 0-0, right? The Egyptian teams are gonna have the home advantage, right? But the South African teams and the Pirates and Sundowns are gonna have the advantage of scoring one goal. If you get a
that's
score
done.
draw, 1-1, 10-10, 20-20, uh, we wish it was 2020, but we know it's probably not going to be that. But any score draw and they are through.
Sure.
You know, so they can literally approach the game the same way. Let's say if you take the Asanans and Al Ahly game, they could approach the game the same way that Al Ahly approached it, which was very compact, four centre backs, two defensive midfielders, and some very technically gifted attackers in front of that, you know, bank of six players to try and go on the counter. And whatever they get on that counters, make sure you get the clean sheet and try and get the goal. You know what I
Mm,
mean? That's
of course.
probably what they're going to be set up. I mean, it's not the Sundowns way. I will be surprised if they play more expansive. I doubt it because there's so much risk
Yeah.
towards.
Well, that
And
might transition nicely. And give us your takeaways because you were at the Sundowns versus
yeah,
Al
yeah,
Ahly game. I mean,
yeah.
pretty dire stuff, right?
Yeah, it was a typical Champions League game. Very tactical, but it was a lot of side to side things, like side to side move, trying to move the chess pieces and trying to open up Al Ahly. It was very similar in the Esperance game, just the fact that they didn't score. Cardoso said post match that he felt that they played better, and the fact that the only difference was that Chalulilia scored against Esperance in the first leg, and they had that goal to go into the second leg in Rads. So look, I kind of disagree because the fact is they didn't create one big chance and they didn't have one shot on target. And things were just very easy for Al Ahly to just swivel and defend. But look, if you're watching on TV, you say, ah, Sundowns played crap. Al Ahly, they eased into the second leg. But if you look at the faces of the players at full time, they were knackered. They were like as much as it looked easy, they didn't create chances. They had to run. They were when you're playing a small team against a big team, and obviously I'm not trying to offend anyone, but
Sure,
the small
sure, sure,
team is
sure.
always going to be running their socks off trying to get that 0-0 draw or get a point or somehow. And to an extent, I've never seen Al Ahly so off their feet. The defenders were, hands on the hips, hands on the knees at times when they're getting a little bit of break. So it was really a hard match. And sometimes you can't really see that emotion and that level of commitment and effort and concentration, organization that they had to have pulled off the fact that they got a 0-0 with no shots at goal. It's people think, it was easy because
Mm,
Sundowns played crap. But no,
mhm.
it was actually a very workman's-like performance from Al Ahly, who have learned their lesson as well of they went against their DNA
Yes,
of being that free, expansive team, because they've got five there twice. You
yes,
know what I mean?
yes. Of
So
course. And
so they weren't naive in their approach, and I think Sundowns are obviously going to be hoping that there's a little bit of more bravery and more adventurous side of them, because then they feel personally that they have a chance to break them down in Cairo, which they've done before.
how much of pressure is Marcel Koller under? We know that he's been under pressure this season.
Yeah.
We know that he is potentially, Amer was saying, he's not convinced he'll see through the season if they get knocked out, which
Yeah.
is crazy when you think we have a FIFA Club World Cup, which will really serve to promote the African clubs. Amer was saying this is the way, this is the way it is at Al Ahly, which maybe I shouldn't be surprised by, but surely he must know that this is make or break for the season.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that Pyramids are ahead of them in the table right now is obviously not a good look for him as well. The fact that they weren't really convincing, they came second in the group to Pirates. Look, it doesn't really care at the end of the day when they win the trophy of the Champions League. But there has obviously been genuine talks to say from both sides. One side is saying Marcel Koller is going to leave at the end of the season because he's been 3 years in Cairo. It's taxing, mentally exhausting. He wants to spend time on the beach with his wife. He wants to go back to Switzerland. There's, a lot of this and that chatter here and there. And then on the other side, Al Ahly media or pro Al Ahly media are pushing the message that he's underperforming and that if he loses game, he'll be sacked immediately and not go to the Club World Cup. We asked him directly in the press conference, Coach, are you aware that should you not win this game, you probably out? And he gave one of those things. I'm focused on the game. You must ask management those questions if you want to know about my future, which was a typical answer of
Mm,
like, I know what you're talking about, but that's not my concern right now. And I'm not going to address it to you. More like, how do you guys even know about this? You know what I mean? It was that type of feeling. When you read body language, even though the guy
yes.
speaking German, you could see he was a little bit annoyed by that question because he knows that we know, and that's a question to create pressure rather than genuinely just from finding out what you're going to be doing in the summer, mate. You know what I mean? So yeah, there is that and like I've spoken to a lot of people and they said that they've spoken to a couple of coaches already in how can I say, in advance to prepare for the not eventuality, but the possibility of needing a new coach for the rest of the season in the Club World Cup. And some of the names might be surprising, but I'm not gonna mention it now because it might involve some of the names that's in the competition. So I'll just leave it at that, and it might
Well,
be
I
a bit.
mean, we know that Jose Riviera is leaving Orlando Pirates. I mean, where could he be going next?
Look,
Pizzo
he could
Mosemani
also
doesn't have a job at the moment.
yeah,
Um,
look, I mean,
we have
he
somebody like Rulani Mokwena who things didn't work out at his club, but he's still a very well-respected coach. Where could he land?
Cardoso is also on the brink. We were analyzing Aquala as well, but like Cardoso loses game,
Yeah.
guys. We're not watching Prime Barcelona. Watching Prime Barcelona. So look, it's from both sides. It's make or break fixtures. Look, Rivero's already on his way. Pyramids also the high-end fire coaches like they please as well. So look, but Jurkic has been there for a while. I think he's quite settled in his project, but he's got a team that is expected to win. Because if you look at the names in the team, all those players are in their prime. El Carti, a former captain of Wydad, Blati Toure, full Burkina Faso international, highly experienced. Mayele, Fati, Hafez. These are guys who are highly experienced. So I have no doubt, despite the fact that they're there for the first time, the expectation there is to win Champions League. And obviously, just get under the skin of the Red Devils as well.
Of course, of course, of course. And if you were Al Ahly, you'd be maybe wanting Pirates to win. or do you favor two legs in Cairo against Pyramids?
I don't know. I think the foe that's more familiar would always be the preferred one. Um, Also given the fact that you don't need to travel, one, you don't need to go to the slaughterhouse of Orlando Stadium or FNB, wherever it might be. But I think that, the less travel would obviously be more beneficial. I know for a fact that Sundowns and Pirates coach would absolutely love it for all South African final. They've said it themselves.
Of course.
I remember it was after the league game. Pirates won them at FNB Stadium, and the two coaches were having a long chat, and it came out that they spoke to each other and said, "We know equality. We're gonna meet in the Champions League final," and they literally one game away from making that a possibility, which would be massive for our local football. And hopefully, if it does happen, it changes the perception of the competition, one,
Of course.
and gives it more. I hope it's like one of those historic milestones that really brings the prestige up in our country where we now feel like we're part of this. Because previously, I think people like most of the teams would get knocked out in the group stage or the first round of the knockouts or even the preliminary rounds. And then you just have this thing of the fans saying, we don't care about this competition, blah, blah, blah. But it's not true, really. But I just hope that it becomes that in the psyche of a fan, this is the premier competition of our continent.
But
This
but
is
do you, but do you not think this is look? I mean, I've lived in South Africa, worked in South Africa. I'm now based in the UK but travel the world. But it's a PSL fan is sort of like a Premier League fan. They sometimes think the domestic competition is more important, and it's a South African thing, right? We sometimes operate in our own deluded world about the quality of our league, the quality of our players. Now, I'm not here to undermine that. I'm saying sometimes we might get too excited with what we do domestically with those rivalries than what the North Star should be, and that is the Champions League because that gives you access to a big FIFA competition.
Yeah, definitely. The thing is, like, I think that the winds have changed somewhat, like over the past 10 years. Um, because of Pirates and Sundowns. First, Pirates, you know, were getting to the latter stages of these competitions. The 2013 final against Ahly, 2015 CAF Confederation Cup, if I'm not mistaken, against Etoile du Sahel. And then Sundowns won the Champions League in 2016. But there was a gradual progression of Sundowns, constantly being at the latter stages of the competition, which they still have done, but not have gotten over the line. So there is like, somewhat, I think more to the purists. Um, and then also to a fact where Sundowns are dominating domestically that they want more. So if you're dominating domestically, all you do is you're holding the importance more to the Champions League because it's something that you're not winning. It's natural. It's how the psyche of a human being or a fan, a football fan is going to be. And from the other perspective, where Chiefs and Pirates fans or whoever, Supersport Cape Town City, they're not even winning in the domestic league. So their eyes are let's try and win. You see, so the levels of objectives at the start of the season is a little bit different, you know. But Pirates have, kind of hit that status quo to stage the season by the fact that they're challenging on all fronts. And this is a team that got knocked out in the preliminary round to Jwaneng Galaxy last season. So it's an amazing way that, they've managed to, you know, uh, just transform the outlook and objectives and where they can be by the end of the season. But the psyche thing, going back to that, it's like it's as if like let's say you on a playground, right? In primary school and you're playing with the grade sevens. You a grade four kid and you're playing with the grade sevens because they're the only ones with the ball. And you in it, and then they batter you by the end of the game. Eventually, if they constantly batter you, you're gonna go and you say, as grade fours, guys, we're gonna go get our own ball and we're gonna start our own game. And I think that is how the North Africans have battered everybody in this competition, and then Mazembe for a
Mm,
while. But it always goes back, always three North Africans. The North Africans win Confederations Cup. So it's like let's just focus on this because this is more entertaining for us. This Champions League thing, we can't compete. You understand?
Of course I
But
do.
but
We've got
now
horses in the race.
exactly. But now, as you see the playing fields or level, maybe the professionalism of the competition, you get a Simba there, you get a Mazembe there, or whatever. It's starting to become more like interesting because it's not just Al Ahly, Zamalek every year, or Wydad or Raja every year. Now there's a little bit more teams. I mean, even the fact that there's different Moroccan teams is even better because we're
Yes.
tired of seeing the same teams all the time. And I
Well,
know it's in the UEFA Champions League, it's the same. But to us to see a Villa and a PSG, a
yeah,
Dortmund now and then, it's refreshing.
of
You know
course.
what I mean?
Of course. And look, I'll come back to your prediction on the Champions League for my final question. But my second one is just a little bit of a summary of what's going on in the CAF Confederations Cup. We saw Berkane beating Constantine 4-0. They look
It's
on course. The second leg is going to be played in Algeria, but Berkane are leading the Batola Pro. They're in fine form. You expect them to get through,
yeah.
barring some sort of ridiculous result in
No,
Algeria,
no chance, mate. No
right?
chance. No chance. Bergane is
Stellenbosch, Simba definitely more delicately poised. Simba winning 1-0 at home, going to Stellenbosch for the return leg. I
mm,
mean, this has again a potential to see a North African against a Southern African or at worst a Sub-Saharan African team
mm.
coming up against them. I mean, how big would it be for Simba or Stellenbosch to play in what is the equivalent to Africa's second biggest or second most prestigious club competition?
Look, I think for both sides it would be a great story for continental football because Samba obviously have a massive fan base. They've been knocking on the door. They've been, in the Champions League latter stages. Um, Obviously, we also have a soft spot for them because they're coached by a South African in Fadlu Davids, who, after being part of the technical team that went invincible with Raja last season, going on to Simba, being solo with a full South African technical team of Darian Wilken and Muiz Kaji and Rido Bertin and I think Wayne Sandilands. It's all South Africans. It's obviously a team that we're also going to have great affinity towards whether they win or lose. I think we all will celebrate who goes to the finals against Berkan, which is obviously the tournament favorites because I mean they smashed Stallies 5-0 in the group stages. I think they've won the competition 2 or 3 times in the past 5 years. Something I stand to be corrected on that one. But yeah, it would be a massive story. One, Stellenbosch, if they get through, because they debutants. One, Simba, because they're a Tanzanian team, and we've always been talking about this hype of Tanzanian football. And now for them to be in a continental final, it will finally put that hype to, like it's this is real, this is tangible success as a finalist in the continental competition. And should they win it, I think it would be a massive statement to the continent to say, if you invest, if you do things properly, if you get the proper technical team, a lot is possible. I mean, other countries, I'm not saying Tanzania is a small country, but other countries are going to be, more determined, more. I think the rest of the continent will be inspired by the story, and that's what we need. We need a Zambian club to dream, we need
Hmm.
we need different clubs to
An
be at the.
Angolan team.
We need new faces, like I was saying with the Champions League. We need new faces. But on that note, I think Simba should have scored more goals in that first leg because we know they are very dominant at home. Always in the Champions League, confident they are very dominant at home. And I feel that Stellenbosch will feel like they have a sniff at this still, even though they were battered for most of the game. It was a dubious goal, even with VAR. I don't know if you saw the incident where there was a guy, either he touched it, and even if he didn't touch it, he would have been
Hmm.
impeding or obstructing the goalkeeper, and it was a clear offside. So it
Hmm.
was a bit of a lot of people felt that Stellenbosch were robbed. But the coach Steve Barker said after the game, we're still confident we can
Hmm.
turn the game around in South Africa. Um, might be difficult without any fans. Let's see how much people come out to Moses Mabhida. They're playing what, like 1,000 kilometers away from their home, which is kind of ridiculous. But that's
Give people the short backstory on that, Lawrence.
yeah, like there's no availability of CAF standard stadia. That's it.
Cape Town City not available, or Cape Town
I
Stadium,
think Cape Town Stadium is being either used. It's obviously either rugby
or
or
Sea
gone
Rugby, right?
or PSL game. I don't know. I can't even tell you now. But it's obviously just unavailability. That's the crux of the matter. And then I don't think the other stadiums meet the regulations of
Requirements.
yeah. So they played one game at Loftus. I was there. I was the only journalist there with the
Hmm.
media officer. They smashed the Congolese team. I can't get to the name of the team now. It was so
That's
long ago.
okay. Yeah.
It felt long ago. But they played at Loftus in Moses Mabhida in the group stages,
Yeah. It's
not at home
unbelievable.
once. Mm.
The sort of final thing I'll say before we move into your predictions in the second leg for the semis is I remember well, I was young, I was an established TV journalist, was a young
Fuck a
TV.
name.
And I used to go up to the main teams I covered in Durban were AmaZulu and
Yeah,
Golden
yeah.
Arrows with Mangoba Mniti when he was at Golden Arrows and now he's back.
Mm.
And then we had Clive Barker and Neil Tove at AmaZulu. And Ernst Middendorp used to coach Maritzburg United and a little bit before that, Gordon Iggesund.
Mm.
And Fadlu Davids was one of the stalwarts, the legends of Maritzburg United. So when we used to go up to cover them and do stories on them, nobody, I believed, watched news. Fadlu did, and he knew who I was and say, Zayn, why don't you come up and do more stories on us?
He
We're
was
only
like
seeing Zulu and Golden Arrows.
he was a bit like he had a bit of Michael Owen in him. He was like the short guy that was dominant with scoring headers.
Yes.
Like he was a really good striker. I would always
Yeah.
remember it. With the skipper's armband, you
Yes.
know,
Yes.
the cult hero of Maritzburg United. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy to think like who would have thought back then that
Yes. He'd
he'd
be
be
coaching Simba, right? And see what he's done as a
coach
manager.
it's the coach in general. And like the feedback that I've received from people in North Africa is unbelievable. They believe that he's on the path to becoming one of the greatest local African managers in our game.
Yeah.
And
Let's
that
do
is
it the hard way. And that's big, right? From the
yeah,
people
that's
you know.
huge. Because the fact of the matter that his reputation, like not amongst the football fraternity, but more amongst the general public, his reputation was in tatters before, he joined Zimbabwe in Russia and eventually Simba.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So the fact that he's obviously rebuilt us in Morocco and now in Simba as well is great for him because now all of a sudden the fans are like, oh, Fadlu, great coach, one of her own, son of the soil, blah 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 blah. So it's very heartening to see also taking a path that is very different because another coach in South Africa wouldn't have that ambition. They would have get relegated with Maritzburg, end up in another NFD team, Utongati
Yes.
or
And just
whatever,
stay there.
and then just end up in the coaching wilderness that we've seen so many times. So this is like really a
It's
great
the path
story,
less taken, and Fadlu's doing outstandingly. Um,
100%.
as we wrap the pod, Lawrence, give
Mm.
us your predictions. Who are we going to see emerge victorious in the second legs and make the Champions League finals? Prediction time. I'm
Uh,
sticking with an All South African final, so I ain't moving.
I hope it's an All South African final because it would be great for our football. But I just think in terms of momentum, I feel like Al Ahly is going to have a little bit of an edge over Sundowns. I think Al Ahly will beat Sundowns. I can't tell you the score. Um, you know, I just feel that there's not enough positivity going into this game, but I could be wrong because all the times we were tipping Sundowns to go through, they lost. Now we're tipping them to not go through, they might go all the way and win this. But from what I've seen, I think Al Ahly will go through, and then I also think Pirates they're unbeaten in the competition throughout the season. They've shown that they can go away and win away. They've shown there is a way of playing away as well without being fancy and their usual
Mhm.
fluent stuff. So I do believe that I think they can get a score draw in Cairo and go through. So I'm thinking Al Ahly Pirates final, a little bit of maybe a potential redemption story of the 2013 final. So who knows? Yeah, that's my pick for the Champions League.
Lorenz, we put you on the spot. Thank you so much for your predictions. For those listening out there, please post some comments, ask us some questions. We'll get back to you. And if you have them for Lorenz, we'll send it to him and he will get back to you. If you're searching on Facebook, if you're searching on YouTube, on the Whistle Podcast, if you're looking for us at our X and our Instagram handles and even TikTok at OTW_podcast. Lorenz, thank you for joining us on the pod. I think we now need to christen you and give you some sort of official title On the Whistle. I mean, Francis and Ali tell me we have too many South Africans, so maybe we're going to bump Courtney off or something. A younger, fresher faced version of Courtney.
Before I go, I need to say Berkan and Simba are the final.
Oh, sorry. There you go. Wow. Oh, wow. Here we go. Well, I'm going Stellies. There we go.
I wrote off Stellies for the Zamalek game completely, and they silenced me.
You're the inspiration, Lorenz. Let's try catch up next week. It'll be fantastic to chew the fat on who we see lining up in that final. And thank you as always for your expertise. I hope you have a good week.